Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the first episode of the Companions of the Prophet ﷺ series, where we'll be talking about the life and key incidents of companions. My name is A.Qadri, and today we'll be talking about Zayd bin Harithah radiallahu anhu, who is the only companion whose name is mentioned in the Quran in Surah Ahzab. He was from the tribe of Qalb. In his childhood, he was traveling with his mom in a caravan. Robbers attacked this caravan and took the children and sold them as slaves in the market. He was bought by Hakim ibn Hizam ibn Khuwailid, who is the nephew of Khadija radiallahu anha. Hakim gifted Zayd radiallahu anhu to Khadija radiallahu anha, who gifted Zayd radiallahu anhu to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Zayd radiallahu anhu was bought by Hakim, gifted to Khadija radiallahu anha, who then re-gifted him to Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Prophet ﷺ took really good care of him, as if he were his own son. Zayd radiallahu anhu's family was looking for him, and they reached the Prophet ﷺ. Now keep in mind, this all happened before prophethood came. His father, brother, and uncle approached the Prophet ﷺ and were ready to pay him to get Zayd radiallahu anhu back. The Prophet ﷺ did not want any money, and he called upon Zayd radiallahu anhu to see his family. Zayd radiallahu anhu was happy to see them, but he didn't want to return home with them. Zayd radiallahu anhu denied because he didn't want to leave the Prophet ﷺ. He saw love, kindness, and mercy in the Prophet ﷺ. Now remember, this was all happening before prophethood. His father told him he's choosing to be a slave instead of living as a free man with his family. Zayd radiallahu anhu replied, saying he desires to live with the Prophet ﷺ. Hearing this, Zayd radiallahu anhu's father was satisfied. After this, the Prophet ﷺ took Zayd radiallahu anhu to the Kaaba and announced to the Quraysh that Zayd radiallahu anhu is now his adopted son, and that Zayd radiallahu anhu will inherit from the Prophet ﷺ. Hearing this, Zayd radiallahu anhu's father was satisfied and he left Makkah. Zayd radiallahu anhu is the only companion mentioned in the Quran. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu was not mentioned, nor was Umar radiallahu anhu mentioned, or any other companion. It was only Zayd radiallahu anhu. He grew up under the Prophet ﷺ, and he was called Zayd ibn Muhammad until the verses of Surah Ahzab were revealed in Medina, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to call everyone by their father's name. This is more just to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, because of those verses, everybody started calling him Zayd bin Harithah again, since that was his original name. In today's term, this was more like an adoption, and Islam does support adoption, but inheritance-wise, adopted children can only receive a third of the share. The companions used to call Zayd radiallahu anhu Hibbu Rasulullah, meaning the love of the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ made him the leader of battles as well, when he could not attend himself. While 2 times the Prophet ﷺ went for battle, he left Zayd radiallahu anhu in charge of Medina twice. This shows how much the Prophet ﷺ trusted him. The Prophet ﷺ married his paternal aunt's daughter, meaning his cousin, Zainab radiallahu anha, to Zayd radiallahu anhu. So his cousin got married to Zayd radiallahu anhu. But unfortunately, the marriage didn't work out. Even though the Prophet ﷺ tried to mend it, the marriage ended up ending. This is when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the ayahs from Surah Ahzab commanding the Prophet ﷺ to marry Zainab radiallahu anha, to show the distinction between biological sons and adoptive sons, and abrogating the tradition of the Arabs in the time of Jahiliyyah. Islamically, you cannot marry the wife of your son even if they are divorced, but this is not the same for an adoptive son because they are not your real biological son. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to remove this trait from the matter of Jahiliyyah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought the Sharia through the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Zayd radiallahu anhu. Even though the Prophet ﷺ was reluctant to do this due to the society's mentality, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reassured him, saying that don't feel that there's any problem, Allah has made this halal for you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala later mentioned that Muhammad ﷺ is not the father of anyone. He is our father of honor, but he is not a father by blood. In the Battle of Mota, during the 8th year of Hijrah, Zayd radiallahu anhu was the leader, and the Prophet ﷺ said that if Zayd radiallahu anhu were to be killed, then the Amir, meaning the leader, would be Jafar radiallahu anhu. And if Jafar radiallahu anhu were to be killed, then Abdullah ibn Rawaha radiallahu anhu would be the leader. All three companions were killed in this battle. So these three companions were Zayd radiallahu anhu, Jafar radiallahu anhu, and Abdullah ibn Rawaha radiallahu anhu. There is an interesting incident from the life of Zayd radiallahu anhu. Once a slave girl named Ayman, who was a young girl and who was a nanny of the Prophet ﷺ, and she stayed with the Prophet ﷺ even when he got married to Khadija radiallahu anha. She was also a Muslim and she also was a widow. So the Prophet ﷺ asked the companions who would like to marry a woman of paradise. Zayd radiallahu anhu, who was young at the time, accepted her for marriage, and they had a son named Osama bin Zayd radiallahu anhu, who was loved by the Prophet ﷺ like he loved his grandsons Hassan and Hussein radiallahu anhuma. During the time of Umar radiallahu anhu would give everyone a monthly stipend to spend on expenses based on their status. Umar radiallahu anhu would give Osama radiallahu anhu 3,500 dinar, while he gave his own son Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhu 3,000 dinar. So he was giving his own son 500 less. Abdullah radiallahu anhu asked his father why there's a difference in their stipends. Umar radiallahu anhu responded saying that the Prophet ﷺ loved Osama radiallahu anhu more than Abdullah radiallahu anhu, and his father Zayd radiallahu anhu was loved more than Umar radiallahu anhu. Osama radiallahu anhu was so young, but the Prophet ﷺ made him the leader to fight against Sham. He was 17 years old at the time, and under him was Umar and Khalid radiallahu anhuma, and other famous companions. This shows how much the Prophet ﷺ used to love, honor, and trust the abilities of Osama radiallahu anhu. Even though Zayd radiallahu anhu started his life as a slave, but became one of the most beloved of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Thank you for joining me in this episode. I'll see you in the next one. Assalamu alaikum.